Hi, I'm Laura Nelkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and I love knitting with fairy lights. In the past, I designed Starry Light, and then a year later, I designed Love and Light with my friend Jen Hohenboken. And now I have a brand new for design to illuminate your life, and it's called Circle of Light. Circle of Light is knit from the center out with yarn overs for increases. And once you have finished that circle, you attach your knitting to a wire hoop with crochet and bulky yarn. And then once you're done with that, you get to go to town and decorate your circle however you would like. You can use like wool balls, or you could use pine boughs, or dried flowers, or moss, or I'm so excited to see what you all do with your hot glue guns as you get into decorating your circles. Now, there are a few tips that I want to teach you about knitting with light. There's some unique challenges to knitting with fairy lights that I think are very important to go over. And before we jump ahead into everything, I want you to know that to follow along with this video, you will need to purchase the pattern. I will give you the link to that and everything else that I talk about below this video. So let's talk about materials, because that's the first thing that you're going to need to gather to have success. All right. In terms of materials, I'm going to give you a link below to an Amazon list that has a bunch of different fairy lights that I know that you'll have success with. The links in that list are affiliate links. If you can find fairy lights locally, by all means, go for that. They're not always easy to find. What is really important is that you need a 66-foot length, which is typically a 200 light LED light. They come in lots of different ways, these strings. They come indoor, they come outdoor, they come with battery packs, they come with a USB plug, they come with the USB plug and the outlet thing that goes into your outlet. I'm that person where I'm like, the thing that goes into the thing. So as you're looking at all the listings, make sure you understand what you're purchasing and how you're going to want to use your fairy lights. Like when we go camping, I have a battery pack fairy light that I love to bring with us. Well, I have a starry light that I bring camping with us. But then for the ones that I hang in my bathroom, I want to be able to plug those into the wall, maybe even have them be waterproof. So just think about your use for how you're going to use your lights. The other thing is the color of the lights. They come multicolored, they come cool white, they come warm white. I gave you lots of different options. So think about what you want the center of your circle of light to look like as you are choosing those lights. After you have your lights, you're also going to need some double pointed needles. I use 17 millimeter double pointed needles. You'll probably only need 4 of them, but if you get a pack of 5, that is fine. You could also do this magic loop if you have access to a long 17 millimeter circular needle. You will also need a circular needle, 17 millimeter, and that should be about a 16-inch or 24-inch. I have a 24-inch 17 millimeter circular needle. Look, I've got everything right here, like a cooking show. So fun. This is a floral metal hoop. It is a 3 millimeter hoop. It is 12 inches in diameter, and your circle of light will stretch perfectly on the inside of this hoop. There's a link for those as well on that list with the fairy lights if you can't find them locally. I haven't looked to see if any of the bigger box stores carry things like this. I know they're used in crochet sometimes for making mandalas or for making a wreath or something. When it gets down to doing the crochet around the edge, you're going to want some bulky weight yarn and a big crochet hook. This yarn right here is the one I'll be working with in the video. It is from Spun Right Round. I got it at Lift Bridge Yarns. It's a yummy single ply bulky weight. You could also use any other bulky weight you have on hand, especially if you're going to be covering the outside of your circle with like pines or dried flowers or whatever. It doesn't really matter what the yarn is. If the yarn is going to end up really taking center stage on the outside of your wreath, like the one I crocheted behind me, then you might be thinking more about the color of that bulky weight yarn. The other thing, if you have access to a Trader Joe's, I got these awesome little felted wool balls on a string, and I just hot glued them around the edge of one of mine. That was a very fast and easy way to decorate the circle. So that is another option as well. But I'm so excited to see what you all do as you get into decorating them. It's just a few ideas to get you started. So once you have gathered all of your materials and you have purchased the pattern, it is time to start knitting. And the next thing that I want to talk to you about is tips and tricks for having success for knitting with lights. Okay, I have a little list of things that I want to make sure that you know about knitting with lights. I think I'll hit everything. I'll probably look to make sure I didn't miss anything. The most important thing is when you get your lights, before you go to knit with them, plug them in and make sure they work. One time last year, somebody emailed me and said they forgot to do that, and then they had knit their whole starry light and the lights did not work. So check them first and make sure they work. Once you know that they work, you're probably going to want to rewind them. Oftentimes when they're wound, the plug is on the outside of the spool. So rewind them. You can use a can, you can use a wire holder. For this one, I used the spool from another set of lights that I did. I kind of keep them around to use them, but rewind those lights and make sure that there aren't any kinks in the wire or anything that it's going to kind of maybe mess things up as you go to start to knit. So once you have your lights all set up and ready to go, as you start to knit, one of the really important things, and I'll go over this as we're knitting, is that you wrap your yarn around the body of the needle and not just the tip. Otherwise, your stitches will be too small and they'll end up kind of getting cramped and it'll be really hard to work with the wire. Another thing to keep an eye on that I think actually really helps is as you're knitting, kind of pull down on your stitches a little bit to open them up as you finish every round. That will make them bigger and make it so you have to do kind of less weird blocking later. It kind of helps shape as you go with your knitting. And then finally, the other thing I like to do is before I start each round, I kind of take some wire off of the spool and get it ready. If your wire is kind of popping off your spool, you could use like a rubber band or something else to hold the wire in place while you just have one section out. But these are all things that I've learned help me have success knitting with wire. It is definitely a little bit different than knitting with yarn because wire is not elastic. So keeping all of those things in mind, let's start knitting together. And I'm just going to show you the beginning of the pattern to get you going, working with the wire and how to do the cast on. And then you'll finish your circle and I'll be showing you how to do the crochet bit at the end. Okay, I just had to talk with my wire. It has promised me that it's going to behave as I do this with you. It's going to be potentially a little loud as needles are hitting the rock and I'm working with the wire. Get ready for a good time with me. So the first thing that we're going to do, if you're looking under the camera with me, is set up for a circular cast on and cast on 4 stitches. I do have a separate video on working a circular cast on if you've never worked one before, but I'll go over the steps with you here. So the first thing that you're going to do is take your wire and make a overhand knot right here. And I'm going to make it kind of small. I don't want my tail to be too big because I'm going to end up having to weave that in later, and the shorter it is, the easier it is to weave in. And now I'm grabbing one of my double pointed needles and I'm putting it underneath my wire, and I'm going to have to remember to call this wire and not yarn. So I'm going underneath the wire, and now I'm reaching into the circle and I'm grabbing the wire and I'm having it go over the needle. And now I'm making another yarn over onto the needle and I'm reaching inside and grabbing another wire. And you'll see if I just stop now and I'm on that small part of the tip, that stitch is going to be too small. So I'm going to give myself a little bit more wire so that I'm really on the needle with those 4 stitches, because that is dictating the size of the stitch. And now I'm just going to pull up a little bit right there for that center circle. And then I'm going to take those 4 stitches and I'm going to slide them to the other end of my needle. And now This next row that I am going to work, I'm going to knit one yarn over. And as I do that, I am going to distribute my stitches onto 3 needles. I think 3 needles is easier than 4 needles because I can have more stitches on the first needle, and that always helps me know when I'm back at the beginning of the round. So what I'm going to do is knit one yarn over twice with this first needle. And then I think these two, yeah, they crossed over. So then I'm going to come into this next one. And you will see I'm sticking my needle all the way in. I'm sticking my needle all the way in. I'm wrapping my wire around and I'm pulling it through. And now I'm making another yarn over. And now I've got 4 stitches on that first needle right there. And now I'm going to go grab another double pointed needle and I'm going to go into this next stitch and I'm going to knit one and I'm going to yarn over. And now with my last double pointed needle, I got to go reach and grab that. It tried to roll away from me. I am going to knit one and yarn over one more time. And now I've got some craziness going on. Just bear with me while I set it up for you. You can see underneath the camera that I have 4 stitches on needle 1, 2 stitches on needle 2, and 2 stitches on needle 3. And this is my crazy little end right here. So this is always going to be my beginning of the round in between needle 1 and needle 3. And now my next round, I'm just going to knit around. So let's do that together just so that you kind of see how to work on the double pointed needles, and then you'll be able to follow the rest of the pattern. There's really nothing new there. Going all the way in, and I'm pulling that off. This is definitely like wrestling a wire octopus right now. Once you get into the groove with these, you can knit one in a night and get it all done. It's just in the beginning. I also find it's really helpful as you work it, if you sit at a table or somewhere flat, if you try to do it kind of in the air on the couch, your needles are very likely to come sliding out. So you'll see it's very helpful to be at a table like this. There, I just knit those first 4 stitches. I'm coming to needle 2. Wrapping the yarn all the way around the width of that needle, pulling it off all the way around the width of that needle and pulling it off. Let me get a little more wire here. And then I am at my last needle and I am going to knit those 2 stitches. So again, sitting at a table, super helpful. And now I have finished working round 1 and I'm ready to work round 2 according to the pattern. And you can start to see that circle a little bit starting to take shape. I would say when you get to, let's see where it is, right about round 8 is when you can switch to your circular needle, because round 9 is another increase round, which will bring you to 64 stitches. And when you have 64 stitches, you definitely can fit on that circular needle. So that's a good point to know. I put that in the pattern when you can switch over to the circular needle. And when you are done, it will look like this. You will see that I have end protectors on my needles, and that is because these stitches love to come shooting off of these metal needles. So it's a good idea to have some kind of end protector or rubber band or something on there to keep those stitches from flying off when you are done working with it. So now that you know everything you need to know for getting started with Circle of Light and working those first few rounds, let's go over what happens when you have finished your Circle of Light and it's time to attach it to the hoop. Okay, like a good knitting cooking show, I have a finished Circle of Light here so I can show you what your crochet stitches look like under the camera, and then we're going to get going with this one and start to attach it to a hoop so that you can see how to do that. So if I look at this one under the camera right here, you can see that there is a live stitch of the wire attached to the hoop, and then there's a single crochet stitch that it does not go through one of the stitches from the knit circle. I'm trying to find all my words here for you. So you'll be alternating, attaching a stitch, working a crochet chain plain as you work around. And what this does as you do it, you'll kind of finger block your wire into shape. So you can see that this piece is looking much smaller than this piece. You can just kind of stretch out those stitches as you start to get onto the wire, and it creates a really awesome frame to be able to stretch things out. Those of you who knit Starry Light remember that one of the challenges of Starry Light was kind of massaging your star into shape for those 6 points. So this one, that frame actually makes it really easy to stretch your stitches out to fit within the 12-inch circle. So I have got my stitches. I've already said that 17 times. I have got a hoop right here. I have got some yarn that I want to use because it's so pretty and icy and wintry. And then I have a crochet hook. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take my yarn and make a slip knot and put that slip knot onto the crochet hook. So that is step number 1. Step number 2, if you have a, let's make sure I was about to call it yarn. My wire is coming from the right place. I'm going to take this end stopper off because I am ready to start attaching. And then I am going to hold my hoop behind my needle with my live stitches. And then I'm going to have my working yarn kind of come over the hoop right there. So you can see if you kind of look at this placement, you've got crochet hook, and then you've got hoop, and then you've got live stitches right there. And you can see that Nomi's doing a very good job keeping the rest of those stitches from flying off that needle, which they want to do. So this hook is going to go into the first live stitch, and then it's going to go inside the hoop and grab that working yarn and pull it through. And at the same time, you can kind of slip that live stitch off of the needle. And now I'm going to reach over the hoop, grab the yarn, and pull it through both of those loops on the crochet hook. And now I have attached that stitch to the crochet hook. And now I'm going to do this one time without attaching a stitch. So I'm going to go underneath the hoop. I'm going to grab my yarn. I'm going to go over and grab my yarn. And then I'm going to pull that through those 2 stitches. And now this next stitch, I want to show this to you again. This next live stitch, I want to attach it. So I'm going to go into the stitch, underneath the hoop, grab my yarn, pull it through, slide that stitch off, grab my yarn, pull it through both of those loops. And now I'm going to do the same thing again, not attaching a stitch. And then you're going to continue like that all the way around. And I am not going to make you watch me go all the way around this, although it is addictive, and we could just hang out while I get all of these lights onto this ring, but we're not going to do that. If you need to see that more, just back up and watch that again. You can slow down YouTube videos, you can speed them up if you need to, but you can see what's happening here is these stitches are getting attached to this hoop with your bulky weight yarn. So once you have finished that, let me kind of get that out of the way, you are going to end up with a full circle that looks like this. When you make it all the way around, you're going to finish off and weave in your ends of your bulky yarn. When you finish knitting, this is written into the pattern, you give yourself a long enough length for hanging. Think about how much wire you're going to need for hanging. You can actually twist the wire and make it a loop if you need to. Command hooks work really well for hanging things. I've put some push pin into my trim, but don't tell Max that I did that. That's another great way to hang them. You'll find ways to get these hung up all over the place. Be prepared when people come over to visit. When they see yours, they might get a little wanty, and you might want to be like, Happy holidays to you. Spread the light and love, and have some more lights on hand so you can knit yourself another one. Once you're done with all of that crochet, the final piece is to decorate or not decorate. If you want to crochet more, you can continue to crochet out and around with any kind of like basic crochet mandala stitch. I give you one idea for that in the pattern. You could use some felt wool balls and just kind of hot glue them around the edge. You can go around once, you can go around twice if you want, whatever. It's your circle of light. You could also take dried flowers and weave them into this crocheted edge or hot glue them on. I think the thing to think about with dried flowers is they won't last a very, very long time, right? Like those dried flowers are going to kind of crumble over time. You could also stick pine boughs in here, either with hot glue or weaving them in, or anything else you find outside that you think would be really lovely. I could see putting like a group of sedums on here. I just came up with that idea. That would be really cool to kind of have like a botanical wreath. So I am very excited to see what you all do with your wreaths or circles of lights. Please share photos with me. I love seeing everything that you create. I really appreciate you watching this video, knitting my patterns with me, learning and enjoying being creative humans together. Happy knitting.